Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Morgan Harper, and I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the American Economic Liberties Project. We're delighted to have you here for today's event, Ban Secret Deals, How to Take on the Economic Development Subsidy Machine. Across the US, state and local officials spend more than $90 billion every year on payments to individual corporations. Usually these payments are to open a new warehouse or factory in their community. To get these so-called economic development deals across the finish line, companies not only make promises to policymakers about benefits like job creation that usually fail to materialize, they also insist that policymakers negotiate with them entirely in secret. Corporations like Amazon, Facebook, and Panasonic even use legally binding non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, to ensure local workers, businesses, and community members can't weigh in on these destructive deals until it's too late. This year, the bipartisan Ban Secret Deals Coalition launched to support state champions who are working to end this corrupt practice. Leaders in Florida, Illinois, Michigan, and New York introduced critical legislation to ban NDAs, and New York's legislation passed the state Senate on a bipartisan, unanimous vote. A truly rare level of agreement in today's political environment, I think we can all agree. And we are very excited then to have that bill's sponsor, Senator Michael Gianaris, here to deliver keynote remarks in just a moment. You'll also be hearing from Oklahoma Rep. Colin Walke and Florida Rep. Anna Escamani on their efforts to combat secret deals in their states, as well as from some very inspiring local leaders who have fought secret deals in their own backyards. Finally, our very own Director of State and Local Policy at American Economic Liberties Project, Pat Garofalo, will be joined by Arlene Martinez of Good Jobs First and John Mozina of the Center for Economic Accountability to provide some practical tips so regular folks can spot and stop secret deals in their communities. Pat and Caitlin Coughlin from our sister organization, Fight Corporate Monopolies, put out a great report and organizing guide on this issue this week as well. So be sure to check that out. And if we convince you to join this fight, which we think we will, please make sure to visit bansecretdeals.org to sign up for updates and learn about opportunities to fight for new rules that will stop corporations from extracting wealth from our local communities. And with that, I will turn it over to Senator Gianaris.
Thank you, Morgan, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the American Economic Liberties Project for organizing this and doing so much work on an important and an issue that I think too much of the public is unaware of. Part of the reason I'm unaware is because of these non-disclosure agreements that are part of these deals, but we'll talk about that today as well. A little bit of background about myself and how I came to this fight. I'm probably most familiar to any of you, or at least the issue with which you'd be most familiar, is Amazon's HQ2 proposal. That was supposed to land here in my district in Queens, New York. We had just succeeded in securing the Senate majority at the time, and that gave me some leverage over the approvals required to have that project come here. And what we discovered very quickly as we looked into it was all sorts of deals were being made by our executives, most notably the former governor, but also the mayor at the time of the city, were involved in secret negotiations with Amazon that nobody other than themselves knew about. And in fact, they were bound legally not to discuss it with anybody because of one of these non-disclosure agreements that was part of the process. So what did Amazon do? They went around the country, as everybody knows, made everybody sign these secrecy deals and pitted everyone against themselves, made them negotiate against each other to the tune of billions of dollars in incentives and subsidies that were offered. That I think we can all agree Amazon didn't need. It was a pure shakedown to try and have the public pay for the right to have them do business in their communities. Never mind how bad an actor they are as it relates to their employees and their workers. That could be a whole topic for a whole other seminar. But what we did is we started asking questions, and it was amazing how just a little bit of sunlight completely unraveled that deal, because they didn't want to talk to the community. They didn't want to engage with the community. They didn't want to have any real conversation about what the needs of the neighborhoods they were proposing to take over were. And so that's my entry point into this conversation. What happened after that is we started looking further into this kind of proposals and realized it's pervasive. Amazon HQ2 was a very high profile and notable example of it. But we found numerous examples just in our own state where this is the type of thing that's been happening. And it's become all too commonplace for private entities to realize now they can just turn to government and say, how much you're going to give me? Don't tell anyone how much you're giving me until it's too late to do anything about it. We've seen it here in New York in stadium deals and warehouse proposals. And I think what we know from the work we've done here with AELP and connecting now with Representative Escamani and Representative Walke, who we're going to hear from later, is that this is going on all over the country. This was not just a New York specific problem. The private sector has realized that they can turn to public dollars, have discussions in secret with the people who commit those dollars to them, and then it's too late to peel it back by the time it's all said and done. And so we're working hard to legislate this practice away. I think Morgan mentioned as part of the introduction that here in New York, we introduced a very simple bill that says you cannot sign a non-disclosure agreement on an economic development deal if you are a public servant or an economic development official. It did pass the Senate with a large bipartisan margin. I think we're seeing great partisanship throughout the country. Here in New York, to have both members of both parties so resoundingly agree on something is quite unusual. I think the only other instance I can remember is something that supported puppies and kittens, which everyone can also agree on. So you can imagine how unusual it is for members of both parties to step in and say these secrecy deals are a problem and should be prohibited. We're now working on getting our other house, the Assembly, to pass it when we're back into session and hopefully take a huge step in rolling back this practice that has started to occur. It's bad enough we're subsidizing these deals to the tune of billions of dollars, but to then do it without the public having the opportunity to opine on it, to say whether it's a good idea or not, makes it that much worse. And I know with the colleagues we have on this call and the growing movement that the American Economic Liberties Project and Pat and everyone over there are working on, we're going to make progress on this. And we're going to get there sooner than later to give the public its voice back and how its own money is being committed to some of these corporations. So we are committed to the task here in New York and look forward to continuing our work together to make it happen. And let's get this done. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much to Senator Gianaris. As he said, getting that bill through was a big deal. As far as I know, it's the first vote on such legislation anywhere in the country, and to have it go through with such a large bipartisan majority was really inspiring for all of us who spend our days in the trenches on this issue. My name is Pat Garofalo. I'm Director of State and Local Policy at the American Economic Liberties Project. I'll be taking over MC duties here for the rest of the hour. And next up, we have Representative Colin Walke from Oklahoma. And I was really excited to have the representative here no matter what, because he's a great voice in the Oklahoma State House, but his remarks became even more relevant recently when we learned that Panasonic is going to be building a new factory in Kansas, for which it is going to receive some $800 million with no binding job creation promises or promised wage levels, completely free and free sailing for them. Panasonic achieved this by using a slew of NDAs to pit lawmakers in Oklahoma and Kansas against each other. It was the absurd spectacle of folks on the floor of their respective state houses voting to hand hundreds of millions of dollars to a company that they either didn't know or couldn't confirm because they were bound by an NDA. Representative Walke was one of the most outspoken about the secrecy in this process, and I'm really glad to have him here today to tell us about his experience on the front lines of exactly what we're all fighting against.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Pat, and thank you for hosting this today. First of all, I think that all politics is local, right? And what I think you have to appreciate about the Panasonic deal in Oklahoma is that, unlike my Floridian and New York colleagues on this call, Oklahoma is desperate for economic growth and diversification. We grow it, feed it, or pump it out of the ground. We have got to change the way we do business in this state. And so beginning in about March or April of this past year, we started hearing rumblings about this Project Ocean coming to Oklahoma. And the discussion really surrounded one company, Panasonic. So even by April, when the deal wasn't actually passed until about May, we already knew it was Panasonic. So my first comment about NDAs is they're pretty much worthless when you're talking about politics, because everyone knows that there is a leak somewhere in someone's office. And so the sole reason why to do these NDAs, I think, is really to just muck up the waters, obviously, because it's going to come out. And so there was mild discussions. We had a few comments made from the Department of Commerce that came in and tried to tell us why this would be such a great deal for Oklahoma, et cetera. And then literally, I believe at the beginning of May, end of April, almost overnight, it came out, it's time to do the deal. We've got to pass the package today. If we don't pass the package today, then Panasonic's going to go to Kansas. And I think within about a 72-hour bill period, we had run a bill through committee and all the way through the House floor. It was quick, it was dirty, and even the representative from the district where this project would go voted against and debated against this bill. It was a unique situation in which you saw the horseshoe of politics, the liberals and the conservatives come together on an issue. It actually surprised me that I was one of the few Democrats that would vote against this type of legislation. And the reason why it surprised me is going back to the local politics point. We're dealing with a governor who was just recently determined by the federal government to have misspent millions of dollars on 7 out of 8 federal subsidized programs during the pandemic. His office is constantly under investigation for corruption, all sorts of backroom deals that never seem to pan out. And the consequence is I don't trust this governor any further than I can throw him. Why any of my colleagues would trust him any further they can throw him is beyond me. But they did, and the only reason that they did is because of the economic diversity that this project promised if it would have come to the state of Oklahoma. It ultimately didn't, and I think that there's a couple of reasons why it didn't. First and foremost, it didn't come to the state of Oklahoma because we do not have the educated workforce, because we are 49th in the nation in education. So instead of setting aside $750 million for Panasonic, we should have set it aside for the children of the state of Oklahoma. The other reason why it didn't come to the state of Oklahoma is because of our horrible policies in general. For example, we just matched Texas with regard to the country's most restrictive abortion ban. We are not a place where tech companies want to come to. And so we have to change our policies in general if we're going to incentivize companies to come to the state of Oklahoma. Dangling dollars is no longer sufficient to get businesses to come to conservative states. And so at the end of the day, what I realized throughout this entire process is government only works when it's transparent. If you've got proprietary information, I understand an NDA. I'm a lawyer. But at the end of the day, the people, the taxpayers, those people whose money we're using to fund these projects damn well deserve to know where their money is going. And so I really hope and encourage that everybody that's on this call really goes out and fights and holds your legislators accountable to make sure that they're spending your taxpayer dollars wisely and transparently. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Representative Walkie. So folks who pay attention to this issue may have noticed recently there's a bit of a kerfuffle between Disney and the state of Florida over some corporate subsidies. And the Republicans in the State House made a lot of noise and a big play about being against corporate subsidies in their community. But if you want to know who in Florida has actually done the work and written the bills and knows these things inside out and upside down, and for years has been pushing to end corporate subsidies when it's politically convenient and not, it isn't any of the Republicans, it's Democratic Representative Anna Eskamani. We're so glad to have her here today.
Well, thank you so much, Pat. And it's an honor to be in this space with my colleagues from states across this country and, of course, different political persuasions for us to amplify, as was mentioned, an issue that does not get enough public attention. You know, right now we are surrounded by so many political distractions and culture wars, and yet so much of it is intentionally designed to pull the public's attention away from what is public tax dollars being given to corporations who don't need it. And again, my name is Anna Eskamani. I am proud to serve in the Florida State Legislature in the Orlando area. District 47 encompasses parts of the city of Orlando, Winter Park, Belle Isle, and Edgewood. We're about 30 to 40 minutes away from the theme parks in my district. And so we're home to a lot of powerful corporate actors, whether it's the tourism industry, utility companies, agriculture, including sugar. We are constantly having to push back against efforts by corporations to exploit loopholes and to pursue these secret deals under the guise of economic development. We all know in this space that transparency is essential to any public official and government body, and that transparency also allows us to hold one another to high ethical standards. And just to give you a few examples of how these secret deals have been conducted in the Sunshine State, St. Johns County, which is a suburb of the Jacksonville area, approved a $24 million package last year for an unidentified tech firm. The city of Tallahassee has negotiated a secret multi-million-dollar incentive package for Amazon under the name of Project Cypress. Pasco County, which is over in the Tampa Bay area, just approved $1 million incentives for unidentified manufacturing company under the name of Project Lexus. And then, of course, last year, the Florida legislature extended a data center subsidy that was supposed to expire after 5 years. And so the legislature extended it for another 5 years. And despite my efforts to find out which company would actually benefit from this, it would not be disclosed to me. But we do know that whoever it is will buy land from a company that is owned by Florida Crystals, which is one of the giant sugar companies in our state. So time and time again, we see this race to the bottom by mega corporations to basically pony cities and counties up against one another or states up against one another to buy their interests into our region. That is a transfer of community wealth to large corporations, and the people who lose are our community members. Our inability to have a functioning public transportation system, the affordable housing crisis, our concerns with clean air and clean water, all of this is tied to a constant pattern of local governments and state officials giving in to corporate greed and continuously allowing these giant institutions to exploit our systems and to do so under a cover of darkness. And I do want to add to another example of why these programs are so problematic. In so many cases, money is being provided to companies that really have nowhere else to go. They're going to come to Florida. And I think some of the best examples are the theme parks. We've seen efforts to, with Universal Studios, able to negotiate $350 million corporate tax break with the state of Florida without anyone from the public knowing about it. And this was an incentive for Universal to build another theme park in Orlando. And to be clear, Universal would not and could not have built this theme park anywhere else. The entire intention is to attach it to their larger infrastructure they already have here in Central Florida. And the public only learned about this because a reporter happened to stumble upon an email that was sent seeking public records information about other records. And this one just happened to fall into the batch. So the secrecy hides the fact that it's big businesses and giant multinational corporations that are swallowing up most of these deals, not small businesses, not startups, not entrepreneurs, and the sort of companies that are least in need of being propped up by taxpayers, because in the case of Florida, they already benefit from a very, very low corporate income tax rate, loopholes to the point where only 1% of Florida businesses even pay a corporate income tax break. And 2 sessions ago, we gave one of the largest corporate tax breaks in Florida history. We started collecting online sales tax revenue, and instead of giving that revenue back to consumers, the Florida legislature used it to give another tax break to businesses. And so it's time that we eliminate these secret deals. And every year I have filed a repealer to remove the ability for local municipalities to do this. And it's really important that the public understand that secrecy leads to governments making more deals that they later will regret, not just because the approach is not sustainable when many businesses leave once the faucet of free money stops. But just to give you an example, in December, Daytona Beach City Commissioners approved a bunch of land use changes for a company, despite not being told what was prompting the changes. And a month later, they learned that it was for an Amazon warehouse that would generate 630 truck trips a day. And now they and their constituents are angry and want to undo the deal. To give you another example of how problematic this approach is, how it does not serve the best interest of our constituents. And if you are going to pursue these types of tax packages, to have transparency be the core approach, and to ensure that there's community benefit proposals, to ensure that there's wage guarantee, that there's hiring metrics, that environmental harm will be addressed and prevented. But again, with the current structure in play, that's not what happened. So we have to continue to amplify it. And again, I'm grateful always for the opportunity to help share these stories to a larger audience.
Thank you so much to Representative Escamani. Before we move on to our next speaker, I just want to pick this up from the comments on the live stream. Someone wrote in, Columbus, Ohio, and Central Ohio is another prime example of NDAs with the recent construction of a new Major League Soccer stadium for the Crew and Intel locating near New Albany. That is absolutely true. And I would throw in Google building its giant data center outside of Columbus, which was also a deal that was covered by NDAs. This is a pervasive problem. It happens all over all the time. We've gone from New York to Oklahoma to Florida, and next we're going to go to the South to Alabama. For Patricia Todd, formerly an Alabama state lawmaker, now the Southern Policy Director of one of our partners in the Ban Secret Deals Coalition, Jobs to Move America. We're so excited to have her here today.
Well, thank you for giving me a seat here. I want to say ditto to everybody who's talked. I think, we're all singing to the choir. Hopefully that there's some people who are watching this that have some new information. I served in the legislature for 12 years and served on the budget committee, where I first learned about the lack of transparency and accountability on these economic tax incentives. And just let me tell you a little bit about Alabama. And I know we all sort of compare ourselves to each other, that we're the worst than anybody else. Most of the Alabama incentives are abatement of taxes. So when you look at the Alabama budget, you don't see those anywhere because they don't report money they don't receive. Now, they do an annual tax expenditure report, which gives the incentive and how much money was provided, but they do not tell us who got the money. The only way we know who got the money is if there's a groundbreaking and the governor's there talking about how many jobs are going to be created, and or through Good Jobs First. And here's the interesting thing. Alabama now has an unemployment rate of 2.3. I mean, that is one of the lowest in the country. So why are we still doling out millions of dollars to profitable corporations to come here when we don't have workers to put in those jobs? When I served on the budget committee and started talking to other members of the committee, nobody had a clue about how these incentives were allocated, what the reporting requirements were. There's no wage floor provision in any of them. It's all secret. And like many other states, our awards are exempt from the Open Records Act. You can't get a copy of them. And the other crazy thing about Alabama is because of our Constitution, there's no home rule for counties or cities. So if the state exempts a sales tax or a property tax, so all of the local governments have to as well. They don't have a choice. They don't get to vote on it. And most of these incentives are provided on the state level, unlike in other states where it's done on the municipal level. In my conversations with county commissioners, I learned that most of them don't have a clue of the financial impact of these incentives. They don't receive any reports on, have you hired the amount of people you said you were going to hire? And they really don't have much say so in the appropriation of the incentive. It's like, why are they keeping these secrets from taxpayers? And it's because it gives the executive branch a lot of power. They get to dole out or, exempt people from paying taxes. And then the governor gets to, say, look at all these jobs I created. Well, first of all, we don't know if any jobs were created. We don't get a report. We don't know. And then we have to spend millions of dollars like other states on workforce development because we do not have that educated workforce. Somebody said they were 48th in the nation. Alabama's 49th or 50th in education attainment. So in a lot of this money does have impact on education funding. We didn't expand Medicaid because we said we didn't have the money. Our prison system is about to be taken over by the federal government because we have so much overcrowding that we need to build new prisons, yet we give Amazon a huge tax exemption. One thing I do want to report is, and another thing is economic development professionals are exempt from ethics laws in Alabama. So they don't have to do an ethics report. They don't have to do a financial report of how much money they've spent talking to legislators. Jobs to Move America, who I work for, just won an agreement with New Flyer, an electric bus manufacturer in Anniston. They received $2.5 million in tax abatements. We just got them to sign a community benefits agreement. So first one in Alabama, where it requires them to hire from marginalized communities, particularly people of color and those who've been previously incarcerated. We will set up a pre-apprenticeship program with hiring preferences. We're real proud of that. And our goal is to use that example with every other manufacturer in Alabama who receives an incentive to say, look, you get this taxpayer money, you got to give us something back. With local hire provisions. And we're working with the city of Birmingham to implement that. So there's a lot of work to do. We're going to be introducing a bill that would require a separate budget for economic tax incentives. Because we found the budget committee members have no clue how much is, being exempt or how much is being appropriated. We're going to get a lot of pushback, but we think that's the first step. And our ultimate goal is to mandate that every incentive to a manufacturer, and that's where we focus on is manufacturing, must negotiate a community benefits agreement that benefits the communities and workers. And so I'm just excited to learn there are other people around the country who could talk about this all day like I could. I'm sure our friends and family eyes sort of glaze off when we go on a tangent about this. But it has a huge impact on public policy, and we all should be working hard to get rid of these secret deals. And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much to Patricia. Very excited that you were here today. And I'm super excited about our next guest. Steve Black is a farmer in Frederick County, Maryland, and has a really inspiring story. He and his neighbors found out that there would be an Amazon Web Services data center coming to their community. It was a super secret deal. There had been backroom meetings going on. I don't want to give too much of the story away because Steve is going to tell it way, way better than I can. But the upshot is that they used the state open meetings law in a cool and innovative way and managed to convince Amazon that maybe it should go elsewhere. So Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell all the ins and outs of this really great tale of a community coming together to actually stop one of these secret deals from happening in their own backyard. And Steve, you are muted.
Good heavens. All right, you got it now. So look, thank you, Pat. I should say at the outset, this is a story with a happy beginning because we found out about this and got out in front of it. But it's really scary in that with the exception of a couple of lucky breaks, we wouldn't have known about any of this. So this all starts out about last summer, when a bunch of us got wind that Amazon had a substantial secret intention to turn the southern part of my county basically into an analog of Northern Virginia. It wasn't a single data center site. It was 3 different complexes, each including multiple facilities. And they were going to put these smack dab in the middle of rural areas, agricultural land, forested areas, without any regard to the existing land use or land planning or zoning that we have right now. This was all done in total secrecy, of course, and the one lucky break that we had, they had a secret meeting, a closed meeting with the county council here, and a worker bee, a low-level person in county government, dutifully included the names of all of the attendees in the summary minutes for that meeting. Didn't say the name of the company, didn't say what the meeting was about, but all of a sudden there's this very long list of non-government people attending a closed door meeting. So a little bit of time with Google and LinkedIn, and suddenly we realize this is the bulk of the site development people and leadership for Amazon Web Services. So a little more digging, and we start to put some skin on the bones of what this secret project was. We still don't know the exact details of it. We don't know the precise locations they were looking at, and we don't even really know the timing of it. But what we did is we decided to use the state laws that were available to us to confront this kind of secret thing. So we put in a Public Information Act request for copies of the NDAs, and the Frederick County denied us access to the Amazon NDA because they said it constituted confidential business information. So that alone starts to make the process look bad. We use the state's Open Meeting Act to have deemed illegal those closed meetings where the Amazon material, their projects were discussed. And then finally, we've used the lobbying laws in Frederick County to file complaints for people that were present at these closed meetings because they were paid and they were talking to public officials to try to get them to adjust policy. So in using all of these tools, we've been able to throw enough light onto a thing that is still essentially undisclosed by the county to make Amazon uncomfortable, and they withdrew from the deal. And as somebody said earlier, the light of day shuts these things down very quickly. And that's where we stand right now. We are still less than a millisecond by fiber optic from Northern Virginia, which makes all of this ground right pickings for projects like this in the future. So I hope you won't have to hear from me a year from now telling a similar story, but you might. And real quick before I end, I want to thank the folks at Good Jobs First and then the Economic Liberties Project, because when these things come up, you can feel real alone. And it's nice to have people that we could reach out to and would steer us towards some supportive people and give us some ideas about how to work this project, this problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you so much to all of our speakers today. It's really inspiring to hear from folks who are fighting against these secret deals in their own backyards, who are working in state houses across the country to bring some order and transparency and sunlight to this really, really messy area. Next, I want to introduce two people who spend every day thinking about how to stop the sort of nonsense our speakers here described from happening. Arlene Martinez, Communications Director at Good Jobs First, and John Mozina, President at the Center for Economic Accountability, both organizations that are founding members of the Ban Secret Deals Coalition, which is a bipartisan group of national and state-based groups all over the country who are working together to try and pass bills to ban NDAs and economic development deals. We don't agree on everything, but we agree that this is really important and is worth banding together to fight back against. I'm really excited to have the two of them here to join me to talk about practical tips for folks out there to spot and ultimately stop secret deals in their own backyard. So the three of us are going to walk you through some steps, including how to pry information out of local officials, work with the local press, use public data to make this problem real and concrete for people in your community. Folks who are listening, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat on the live stream. And we'll try to get to them. And I want to make one more little promotion before we do. The Ban Secret Deals Coalition has a website. It is bansecretdeals.org, very easy to remember. If you want to stay updated on everything we're doing, find out where there's active legislation, look at the secret deals database that we've put together to see if there is one in your backyard that you didn't know about, but that we managed to spot. Go there, check it out, sign up for updates. It's a really good group of organizations that are working together with our great state champions to try and get a handle on this problem. So I'm going to kick us off with just a few tips for how to spot a secret deal. The first thing is really knowing what to look for. So here are 3 signs that a secret deal is in the works in your community. And the first one has actually been alluded to several times already by our speakers, but I want to make it really explicit. There's a development project in your area with a nondescript name like Project Olive. I think we heard Project Ocean or Project Mastodon, a random noun that doesn't describe any sort of particular business. This is a favorite tactic to try and hide the identity of the business in question and the facility it's planning. In fact, an Amazon warehouse in New York State that was recently approved by a town council had been codenamed Project Fifi during the negotiations. And I really, really, really wish I were making that up. Hat tip to Greg Leroy at Good Jobs First for tipping us off to that a couple of days ago. So silly code names, that is sign one, which are intentionally, these code names are used intentionally to hide the project in question, because the whole point of this is secrecy. It's to prevent the community from having their say on the project. So that's tip one. Number two, local filings for a project include only real estate developers and no indication of what a building's actual tenant will be. For example, Trammell Crow is a developer that does a ton of work for Amazon. It'll list itself instead of Amazon when it's going for incentives for a warehouse or a distribution center. Number three, political leaders only mention the line of business a particular corporation will be in, such as an e-commerce company, a logistics company, a heavy manufacturer, or they only refer to the business they're negotiating with as the firm or some other ambiguous name. You'll see this during interactions with the press, but also during legislative debates. During the Panasonic deal that Representative Walkie talked about, legislators in both states talked about the firm over and over and over again when they were on the state house floors, because they either couldn't disclose or didn't know the identity of the corporation that they were voting to give hundreds of millions of dollars to. You'll find some of these pieces of information, meeting agendas and minutes from your local government, some from talking to actual elected officials. Some people like Steve Black, who you just heard from, have been tipped off to secret deals in their community because of the sudden presence of corporate developers or sudden zoning changes, like a rural zone being quickly rezoned to industrial for seemingly no reason at all. So that's what to look for, but Arlene and John are the experts in what to do once you think you found something. So first, Arlene, you come from the journalism world. You were a reporter for a long time. Can you talk a little bit about how to work with the local press to get word out about these projects, or how to get local reporters to ask the questions that residents can't or won't?
Yeah, hi, Pat, and thanks for having me. Just wanted to quickly flag a deal that Rep. Escamani mentioned, the St. John's unnamed tech company, who that ended up being. It was for a PGA media headquarters, which isn't exactly what I would call a tech firm. And that ended up being according to their economic development impact report, it was going to generate $9 billion in activity, which might cause you to raise your eyebrows when you look over to the agreement. The other thing about that deal that I wanted to point out, I actually often, when I train on this issue, I talk about this deal because one of the wage requirements was that for the 20 years that this deal existed, the wages just had to be linked to the 2020 year. So for 20 years in 2040, they still only have to pay 2020 wages. So I mentioned that because one of the things I think that when you're trying to generate some local media interest is you're trying to get reporters to figure out why this is a story, why this isn't just a NIMBY battle, right? So oftentimes there's rumors like the Panasonic. We knew it was probably Panasonic, so you can start backgrounding corporations at that point or companies at that point. We have some different tools that you could use to do that. Good Jobs First maintains something called Subsidy Tracker and Violation Tracker. Violation Tracker in particular, you can look at a company's track record. So how do they treat workers? How are they on the environment? Is their workplace safe? That scraped 400 regulatory agencies. We collect data from 400 regulatory agencies. So those are a way to sort of look at what a company is doing. Because one of the things to think about is whether a big company that has a history of corporate misconduct deserves these subsidies in the first place. And sometimes you might have a few minutes a day to weigh in, an hour to look over a project. The Securities and Exchange, the SEC EDGAR is a way to look at executive compensation. One of the things that does is look at, so what does executive make compared to the type of work that the company is proposing to bring in, that the taxpayers are helping to offset. So that would be another way to look. Again, you're trying to generate interest. You're trying to, if the company is not deserving of the subsidy, what are some things you can look at to say that, no, this company doesn't deserve it? Look at the median pay compared to what executives make. Open secrets is another place. So who's donating? A lot of times these corporations tend to be very active politically. So they could be giving donations to local elected officials and others. And all these are good ways. And we're talking, this whole process can take an hour potentially. And that's sometimes all you're going to have from the time a deal might be public and then the deal's finalized. It's not a lot of time to look or try to raise awareness about it. But again, you know, like the rep said earlier, a lot of times the rumor mill's out, you know who the company is, so you can be ready and start agitating even before the deal's announced that, hey, this is a company with an XYZ track record. Again, with reporters, transparency is always a big deal. I think there's some outrage that is generated when community members learn that their money is going to a company and they don't know who the company is, they don't know what the set amount is, and they don't know what they get in return. I was talking to a reporter today in Greenville, North Carolina, and there was a company there with the project name coming in, a code name, and residents saw the code name on the agenda and they said, hey, who is this company? And they said, well, we can't tell you. And they said, well, how can we comment on this agenda item if we have no idea who is behind it? So she ended up writing a story based on the resident opposition to it. So that can itself can be a story in the months leading up to it. We're here at Good Jobs First. We're happy to help you sort of sort out these issues or anything. But I think bottom line, as we've been hearing over and over, if these deals are as great as they say, then the public should know what they are and get a chance to review them before they're approved. It's our money. Thanks, Pat.
Of course, and actually, Arlene, I kind of want to stick with you for one more second just to follow up. Is there a particular angle that you think is most effective, particularly for local news, right? Because this can be hard, right? There's a lot of documents, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of nonsense that goes into these deals. So is there a particular angle that you have found when pitching reporters that gets them the most interested and jazzed up to cover this sort of thing?
Yeah, I was actually doing a training earlier with some journalists, and I do them regularly. And one of the things that it always outrages reporters, I think appropriately, it outraged me when I was a reporter, was the lack of transparency. So really just the bottom line that in so many of these deals, you can't figure out who the recipient is or how much money they're getting or how many jobs are being created. 3 basic facts. How difficult it is to get that information, I think really raises eyebrows and really causes reporters to want to dig in, because transparency is such an important part of journalism. Without that, you can't really go anywhere else.
All right, now, John, over to you. And before we talk to John, I would like everyone to note the pay for your own damn stadium sign that is behind him, because it's the most important thing in any of the pictures today. You're one of the best in the country at making these deals real to folks in the local community. I feel like every time one of them is happening, you're out there saying, hey guys, for the money spent on this deal, your city could pay for its entire fire department for 10 years or hire 110 teachers or whatever the case may be. First, I'd love to hear why you think that's an effective tactic. I agree with you that it is, but I'd like to kind of drill down on why. And then second, how can the people listening today find the sort of data they need to make that type of argument and really drive home the harms of these deals when they're working with their own local communities?
Sure. And thanks, Pat. Thank you to American Economic Liberties Project for having me on. When Pat said we don't always agree on everything, I was the one he was talking about. I'm the token member of the vast right-wing conspiracy here, I think. You asked the question, why do I think this kind of messaging of putting things in context is important? I think the best way to answer that is to do as one often does in a AELP presentation, and approvingly quote one of President Reagan's old advisors, Dick Wirthlin, one of his major messaging strategists, who, I don't know if he invented the phrase, but he certainly popularized it, which was persuade through reason, but motivate through emotion. That facts and figures are all well and good, but you have to make people care about this stuff. There's a lot that's wrong in our world. There's a lot that's wrong in our communities. There's a lot of things that our governments do that are just broken, bad, wrong. Your mileage may vary on what percentage of it you think that is. To get people to actually care about this topic and this issue, you have to connect it to stuff that they care about. If you understand the concepts of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to get it as far down that pyramid as possible. And so in the process of sort of trying to figure out how to talk about this stuff over the years, one of the things I realized is that numbers just go in the ear and out the other. None of us can really figure out what has a real grasp of what $1 million is, or 10, or 100, or $1 billion. At some point, it's just big round numbers, and it sounds bad, but who the hell knows? I mean, I ask yourself, how close do you think you could actually get to putting a number on how big your city's budget is, or how big your state's budget is? Like, do you have a feel for what that is? Most people probably don't. I frankly couldn't tell you what my city's budget is. So instead of saying numbers, one of the things we try to put that in contexts. So we do things like, Pat gave the example. We talk about New York City was a good example. And you could say, oh, New York City in its 2019 pre-COVID financial report said that they abated $3.8 billion in taxes and or you could say that New York handed out more in tax breaks that year than it spent to run the New York Fire Department and Department of Corrections combined. When you say something like that, people tend to go, oh, well, that doesn't sound right. And we can then say, I know, right? Let's talk about that. Or I'm from the Detroit area. Talk about the fact that in 2019, the year before COVID, the city of Detroit gave just one landowner more money to assemble land for a Chrysler automobile plant than the city spent that year to run the Detroit Health Department. Again, the year before, Detroit was one of the first and hardest hit cities for COVID. Or you can do it at the state level. You could say, again, 2019, Louisiana's state budget said that there were $565 million in costs for incentive expenditure programs. Nobody knows what $565 million means. It's a number. You could say it was umpty gazillion and nobody would know the difference. But if you say in a state that's the license plate says Sportsman's Paradise, but that's more money than the state appropriated that year to run the departments of wildlife and fisheries, natural resources, environmental quality, and agriculture and forestry combined, all of the things that sportsmen theoretically care about, then people start paying attention. So that's the kind of thing we do. And frankly, these are kinds of things that you can do at your own level in your own community. These are simple numbers. These are numbers. Good Jobs First is the great place. Arlene was talking about Subsidy Tracker to find some of those basic numbers. And then all you have to do is just go to the website of wherever it is, the city or the state, and just sort of look at the high level budget numbers. What I do is I sit there and I have the number in my hand of what the abatements are. And then I just sort of scan through the budget for a number that seems somewhat similar, or that a couple of numbers that I can put together that seem somewhat similar for things that people care about. In Kentucky, I remember doing once working where I was aiming at a conservative audience. We started putting it in terms of county prosecutors and state police troopers. In other places, we've talked in Tucson, Arizona, we talked about the cost of running the city's very popular network of free public pools in the middle of the desert where it's over 90 degrees for 7 months of the year. Whatever matters to your community, I virtually guarantee you that you can find some number that does this. And this goes to sort of one of the issues that makes this stuff so hard to fight, which is in economics, it's called concentrated benefits and diffuse costs. A couple people benefit a heck of a lot from these things. And the rest of us pay, relatively small amounts, each of our tax bills, each of our homes. It's a relatively small amount. In order to get people to care, you can't, there's always like, well, it costs less than a cup of coffee, or it costs, less than a pencil a day or something like that. What you have to do is you have to reconcentrate those costs in people's minds into something they care about, into something they feel like it affects them: police, fire, roads, schools. And that's what gets it to work. And then sort of I finish off with this. The last thing is, again, I sort of mentioned earlier that I come sort of from more of the center right of things. Representative Walker earlier talked about horseshoe theory and how it was sort of the Republicans and the conservatives coming together. I highly recommend that in your community, if you're looking at this stuff, if you're finding it stuff, go look at the folks on the other side. I say all the time, and I'm proud to work with people from the left, like Arlene and Pat and all the other folks here, that this is not a right versus left issue. I say this is an us versus them issue. And that fight, I know whose side I want to be on. And I think if you take this on in your community, you might find that some of the folks you spend the most time fighting on this one could actually be your allies. So hopefully that's helpful. And I'm always happy if somebody's running through one of these things in their city or their state, always happy to help folks walk through and try to find the example that might make folks in their community say, hey, that doesn't make sense. So you can be like, I know, right? Let's talk about this.
Thanks so much, John. I'm actually gonna follow up because you and I have been in testifying together in committee hearings in this and in a few different places, I think, at this point. What's your advice for using the kind of data that you dig up when talking to elected officials? I feel like it might be a little different because you're pushing back on a political angle as well, and not just a kind of community harms angle. So can you talk a little bit about using data when you are finally maybe face to face with a mayor or a city councilor or a state house rep?
Yeah, it's important to remember that fundamentally people need to understand that these tools are not economic tools. One of my favorite things that I say is that these deals don't exist to create jobs, rather they exist to make voters believe that politicians are responsible for creating jobs. They are PR tools for elected officials, for politicians, for legislators, and more often than legislators, they're for mayors and governors. There's very good research that these subsidy deals don't work economically on overall. Occasionally there's one that matters, but overall, they just don't work economically. There's also a huge amount of evidence from academics all over the country, all over the political spectrum, that they are very powerful political tools. Research from professors at Duke and Texas University, Nate Jensen and Eddie Molesky at Duke, found that a swing state governor running for re-election who can take credit for winning, unquote, 1,000 manufacturing jobs through subsidies can see a voter intent bump among independents of as much as 9%. 9% among independents in a swing state is enough to win you a lot of elections. There's all sorts of other evidence out there that states where the governor is running for re-election are more than 4 times as likely to see a sudden large jump in subsidy deals. It has nothing to do with unemployment rate or recessions or anything. Is the governor running for re-election and needs some political air cover here. So in turn, your arguments that this isn't a good economic idea are rarely going to bear fruit. What you need to be using these numbers to is either implicitly or explicitly threatening that you are going to use these numbers to make this not a political benefit to the elected officials that you're talking to, but rather a political liability. Make them not want to have to explain to their constituents why they're spending more on this than they are on the fire department or on the public parks or whatever it is that people care. Make them not want to have to like slog through this when they're doing it for largely political reasons to begin with.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. And I love that stat. I've used it quite a bit myself, and it's become relevant recently as we're moving into an election year, is that one of the most reliable indicators of whether a state is going to increase its corporate subsidy spending is not to look at unemployment, income growth, GDP growth. It's simply to check and see if your incumbent governor is up for re-election, because that is ultimately what this comes down to. And I think it emphasizes that these are policy choices that are being made, and they can be unmade, and we can do things differently. I think there is oftentimes a sense of inevitability that has been built into this intentionally on the part of the businesses who benefit, that this is the way things must be. This is the only way to do economic development, is to throw a bunch of money at a corporation and hope that they create some jobs with it. But that's not true. Everyone here has talked about the sort of investments that you could make instead of doing things that way. And if you can flip the script politically, then you have a much better chance of knocking these things off and actually getting some real investments in your community. So John, thank you so much. That was all really helpful and useful. And I hope folks take him up on his offer to help. And I hope you'll be picking through budget documents from everywhere, all over the country really soon. One last tactic I want to mention, and this actually directly comes from the great work Steve Black and his neighbors did, which you heard about earlier, is to file complaints under state or local open meetings law that reveal useful information about these deals. It's super annoying. It's time consuming. It's not for the faint of heart. I've done FOIA requests myself. They're terrible. And you're going to get rejected a lot. But something to remember is that filing those complaints and asks is useful, even if you get rejected or the materials are redacted, because that can provide some level of proof that a secret deal is in the works. You can take that to the press. You can take that to your neighbors. You can say, hey, look, there's something going on and we deserve to know about it. That is actually all we have on the schedule, all we have time for today, though I'm sure that everyone in this room, as Captain America would say, could do this absolutely all day. I want to thank all of our speakers today. everyone who tuned in. I want to thank my colleague, Kate Yeager, who did so much work behind the scenes to pull this all together. Again, if you want to get involved, and I really hope you do, please visit bansecretdeals.org and drop us a message. You'll be able to work with us. We can put you in touch with legislators in your state. You can see if there's a secret deal in your backyard that you should be angry about, and we'll build this community together and hopefully make a lot of great progress. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.